That's right! Greetings, fellow armchair Imagineers! Tiki here.
And Blue Dragon 5.
And folks, we're halfway there. We're at the midway point. It's the Great Disney Ranking Podcast, Part 3. This time we're going from number 40 to number 31. How you feeling, Dragon?
On the right side of the dirt.
All right. So this is definitely kind of like the point in the list for me where things are, I will admit, things are kind of starting to blend together a little bit for me as far as like the, kind of like the first 20 was easy to put together as far as like, I like these films well enough, but they're not necessarily top tier. I feel like the mid-tier, Dragon, the mid-tier just in general, these next 20, these next two parts that we're going to go over are probably the hardest to rank from my end. Did you have that same issue?
You mean this list?
I not this, like, I mean this part, so like 40 through 20, so like this chunk.
Yeah, it's definitely game time for sure. Yeah,
it definitely felt the most like arbitrary, and like I had to like stretch to make the rankings not arbitrary, if that makes sense.
Yep.
But all right. Any other observations from your experience going through these? Dive into it.
Well, I kind of noticed I had a few that at this point of the list, kind of at the halfway point, I'm sort of like I have a few that I'm stuck with. They're kind of the middle of the road ones in which I have nice things to say, but by the same token, it's like, well, I mean, they're technically better than the ones we've had up to this point, but still, there's kind of like there's the good things in them that necessitate that they be there. Yet, not exactly my go-tos on the rewatch.
Although I will say, just with this, there's definitely there's 2 or 3 of them that are going to be shockers, including my number 40, which we'll get to.
Right.
So let's just jump right into it. My number 40, Dragon. It's this is a big one. This is a big one that's going off the list way before I thought it would. It's widely regarded as one of the best in the canon. And Dragon, this is going to make the malt cry. Are you ready?
What?
My number 40 is Dumbo.
Oh my god!
I know.
Oh, you're an inhuman monster.
Okay, Dragon, hear me out. So Dumbo threw me for a loop when I watched it in the context of this rewatch. Because in the context of this rewatch, you can really kind of see the chinks in the armor, especially compared to the films that were happening around Dumbo at the time. And honest to God, Dragon, the thing that really drags Dumbo down for me are just a couple elements of it. I mean, obviously, first things first, we have to praise, this movie's got some very, very significant classic sequences. Obviously, Baby Mine and Pink Elephant is kind of like a 1-2 punch as far as classic Disney scenes go. That's obviously the strong point of the movie. But I gotta say, Dragon, a lot of the movie outside of those 2 big like landmark scenes is just kind of okay. It just kind of has the energy of like a typical Disney cartoon, which is fine. But I will say Timothy Mouse is a protagonist. I don't want to say he rubbed me the wrong way, but as a protagonist, he feels a little bit dated. Because he's basically only there just to give Dumbo a mouthpiece. And frankly, he's a little bit of a jerk in certain spots. And I'm sorry, Drag, but I have to address it. This film is racist as fuck. All right?
No, it's not that. I mean, yes, but it's like coming to that degree, really.
Dragon, if it was just the roustabouts or just the crows, I would be willing to look past it. The fact that it's both. And I will say, as someone who kind of like has defended the crows in the past, of like, oh, they're just cool caricatures, No, looking at it now, looking at it in adult lens through, through the current political landscape, it's pretty bad, Dragon. I've got to say. So for that reason, man, I don't know. Like, this movie is obviously a classic. It's obviously, a landmark in the Disney canon for sure. But to me, I think it's far and away the least memorable out of the main 5, out of the first 5. it's definitely the one of the first 5 that really feels like it's obviously not made for artistic ambition and rather made for a profit, which is cool. Like, that's a cool part of its backstory. The fact that it was kind of made on the cheap and the fact that it did kind of save the studio for a while. But I got to tell you, man, watching it in current day context, especially kind of like right after films like Fantasia, Pinocchio, Bambi, all 3 of those are just absolute, like, utter gobstopping and works of art in their own right. I mean, they're just towering achievements in the animation industry. And then you get to Dumbo, and it's fine. It's a fun little movie, and that's about it. So I know this is going to be unpopular. This is probably shocking to see Dumbo so low here. But I don't know, man. I'm sticking to my guns. And they may be racist, but are they really as bad as what Warner Brothers did around that time? Says Z and K Channel. I mean, honestly, like,
come on, Warner Brothers is a lot worse with it. I mean, we come on. It was not as bad as what Warner Brothers did.
Well, to be fair, Warner Brothers wasn't really making feature-length animation either. So
well, still, I mean, we're talking frequency versus a feature. I mean, like, what are we talking about?
Right, but in this feature, I've just Dragon. This is the challenge to the list. I'm holding all of these films against each other. It's so while Dumbo definitely has a lot of stuff going for it, I just it does feel dated. It does feel a lot less ambitious than its contemporaries in its era. And frankly, it is kind of racist in certain scenes, like just straight up. That and Dragon, kind of much like we were talking about, like with The Sword in the Stone. I don't think this is as egregious of an example as The Sword in the Stone. I think this is more just kind of like the movie, kind of like the marketing and the legacy behind it kind of being a little bit misleading. But yeah, Dumbo flying literally doesn't come in until the very end of the movie.
Well, they did build it up in sequences where he could have flown, so they built it up.
Sure. Well, at the end of the day, Dragon, I know that Casey Jr., Theme Park Priest Casey Jr. is a lot of fun for sure, and the Sterling Holloway Stork. There are good elements to this movie. Like I said, I'm grading this on a curve, though, and that's the challenging part about this list is that I do. Like, I'm looking at these movies and how they stack up with each other, like what problematic elements there are, what great elements there are, what dated elements there are. And unfortunately, Dumbo does have some great elements, but it's also got some dated elements and certainly some problematic ones. So that's kind of what's keeping it down a little bit.
Yeah.
All right, Dragon, what is your number 40?
Sleeping Beauty.
Okay. So I have a feeling we're probably going to be pretty simpatico on this one.
So yeah, I mean, look, Sleeping Beauty is one of the most frustrating Disney movies in that, debatably the most beautifully animated princess film of the bunch. I mean, like Floyd Norman, kind of got a start on this. Not like as like a big like eye catching. Oh my God, look what Norman did! But I'm saying he was beginning the process between that and Sword in the Stone.
Floyd Norman was beginning the process, and then I've been shouting him out a lot. But Ivan Earl was the head animator on this, and he just killed it.
I'm saying I think Norman got one of the weird fairies. That's the thing. It's about all
the weird
really
fairy.
One of the 3, like I think the blue one, but anyway, but not that blue fairy. People are thinking. Anyways,
I know the fairies in Sleeping Beauty are complicated.
So this is what I'm talking about. So I mean, you have a Hall of Famer iconic villain with Maleficent. It's pretty cool. Again, the real Maleficent, not like the Angelina Jolie, like give her a funny hat Maleficent. No. So ultimately, the problem is story and characters. They're not great. Story and characterization. It's not great. It's very bare bones. And here's the thing that really hurts it the most for me. The pacing is absolute crap. Just terrible. Just not
absolutely.
Very
absolutely.
poorly. I mean, let me break it down for you very simply here. Okay, so I really do like her. Some of the songs in this movie, particularly like her big, like the big song she's got, kind of her equivalent to the "I Want" song, I think. So the point being, we don't get that.
Dream.
Yeah, that's the one. You don't get that until 30 minutes in of your like hour and barely change movie, like hour 15 minutes.
Yeah.
So 30 minutes in is when we get the "I Want" song.
That is a
And
fundamental flaw of the Disney princess formula.
and I'm gonna Mr. Mr. Sword and Stone Dumbo comparison. I'm gonna give you this. Okay,
Okay.
doesn't go to sleep until the 50-minute mark.
Oh, I know. I'm aware of that.
You got these fairies in which there's too many fairies.
Way too much screen time, in my opinion, is spent on the whole like pink and blue dress thing, which is a charming gag, but it gets old.
Anyway, so again, overall, like the marriage thing about like, oh, someone needs to get married is that's boring as all get out. But again, aesthetically, it's wonderful. So yeah, that's about it.
Yeah. Okay. Theme Park Priest, ironically enough, his number 40 is also Dumbo. And I think one of his other numbers is pretty spot on with where I place something. Spoiler alert. So we'll get there. Let's see. Z&K says, I'm always a sucker for the circus aesthetic. In terms of adding lyrics to already established classical music, this is one of the better examples. And yeah, that is an interesting thing with Sleeping Beauty, is that the music, not the songs, but the actual score were from the Sleeping Beauty ballet, and they pretty much just added music to that, or added lyrics to that. So that's definitely an interesting, I don't think they've ever done it that way before. It was like Sleeping Beauty is kind of like a weird one-off experiment of a movie in a lot of ways. All right, you still there?
Yes.
Okay, just making sure. Okay, let's get to my number 39, and my number 39 is Big Hero 6. That was his mistake. All right, so Dragon, obviously I think Big Hero 6, it suffers from the villain thing. You can defend the villain, that's fine. I he has a decent motivation. I just think he's way over the top with it. Why I'm putting Big Hero 6 as high as I am is twofold. Number one, I do think that the Hiro Tadashi Baymax stuff in this movie does absolutely sing emotionally. I think Baymax in particular, he's getting pretty overexposed. I will say I saw the trailer for Baymax, and I'm like, okay, Dragon, let me put it to you this way about the Baymax trailer. I live for Baymax helping out Aunt Cass.
Yeah,
right?
Aunt Cass.
That is the Baymax show that I want.
Yeah.
Anything else, though, I'm just kind of like, okay, Baymax is just getting into shenanigans. Just give me a show that's literally just Baymax in the cafe helping out Aunt Cass, and I'm good. But regardless, yeah, Big Hero 6 has an incredibly powerful sibling story. And Dragon, you know me. Spoiler alert for a movie that's going to be high on my top 10 list. I'm a sucker for sibling stories.
You get out. No, I don't believe it. You're putting me on, sir.
So yeah, the Tadashi stuff in this movie is absolutely beautiful. Just the way it's written, the way that Tadashi's quote unquote soul kind of gets transferred into Baymax. I mean, that's genuinely kind of deep. And then also, while I don't necessarily think that the actual Big Hero 6 themselves are great characters, I mean, even having a full series to develop them, I still don't think they're really all that great as characters. I will say that the film does have this kind of nerd school vibe that made me excited to be in college at the time. And I do have a lot of college nostalgia based on this movie. And so I do feel like this movie kind of celebrates being the nerd, celebrates being the techie. And I think that's important. I think that's really cool. Let's see. Z&K says, I always thought the villain was voiced by Liam Neeson. Well, Z&K, you know what I have to say to that? That was your mistake.
Yes, right. The wonderful James Cromwell is
yeah. James Cromwell's great. I just wish just give me a couple more scenes of him trying to be the supportive teacher but kind of slipping a little bit. That's all I need. I just feel like his transformation kind of just literally just comes out of nowhere. And that's why I can't rank this film any higher. It's just the villain is just weak sauce in my opinion. But honestly, most other things besides TJ Miller, because honestly, TJ Miller is like one of those celebrities that's just kind of on my shit list
But you
now.
know what? I think you're saying that because of what happened. Before that, did you really feel that way about him?
Well,
Like, be honest. Like, were you really like casting any aspersions until they
I
said,
think
"Oh,
his
look at him"?
shit got super old super fast, and then there's the personal stuff. So yeah, I don't know. He's just the kind of he's in that Jared Leto camp of like when he pops up, I just kind of get genuinely uncomfortable. But and I'm glad that they recast his role. But yeah, great Stan Lee cameo, of course. Can't deny that. Especially when you think the Stan Lee cameo is just going to be the portrait, and then at the very end, it's no, he's coming. Like he's fully a character. So yeah, overall, Big Hero 6, pretty solid movie. I certainly don't think it deserved to win Best Animated Feature that year, but that's an entirely different conversation. I dare I say slightly underrated for how thematically rich it is, but still, it's got a wonky cast of characters, it's got a wonky villain, so it's definitely not perfect. All right, Dragon, what is your number 39?
Encanto.
No! Okay, this is obviously where you and I are going to differ a little bit.
Well,
right?
I mean, look, I could have put it number 40, so let's be lucky it's at where it's at right now. Okay.
This is fine. This is fine.
Right. So, I mean, look, for Encanto, it's like I can't for the life of me get into Encanto as many times as I try. But here's the thing, though. I can't deny it has great elements, the great elements that are a part of the film. I can't deny those. In that, I think it's a great assortment of characters. I love Mirabelle's parents, particularly. Again, of the bunch, they really kind of stand out to me. But again, all these are good character premises and good
Every
characters.
single little animation with the dad, I just adore.
Yeah.
Every single little subtle gesture.
Yeah, like when he sees the wife is concerned, so he joins in the concerned face. He's wonderful. So yeah, that's what it says. We have that. The casita's origin is obviously very moving. The casita itself, very awesome. But honestly, for me, and again, I want to be very clear, it's like a subjective thing. I mean, in terms of my listing here, this is I think it's primarily for me. I mean, I have like kind of a justification for it, but I don't think it's going to really, not really like an end all be all. It's just like, to me, crazy as it sounds, I think the music hurts the film for me. Aside from obviously, we don't talk about Bruno, bro, which is great. I do like.
Yeah, you're insane.
Yeah, thanks.
I'm just kidding. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
My point, here's thinking on it. I think I've come to an epiphany about why exactly Encanto doesn't work for me. Is that so? Again, a subjective thing, but I think it's that. One, I mean, Lin-Manuel Miranda's music's always been a little iffy for me, and I think that's the main subjective reason. But looking at it, I feel like this movie ultimately to me feels like Disney wanted a musical before they wanted a movie. And it's like a story, and basically it's story in service of a musical before it's music in service of. So let me try that once more. It's story in service of music before it's music in service of story, which is what we're used to and what we usually get with the Disney films. I feel like for the most part, like very few exceptions, it usually goes that way. And I don't know. I mean, ultimately, I've always kind of felt this with the style is that with the exception of that Bruno song, it feels like a lot of exposition songs, instead of like I love these characters. I want to see them actually maybe work through these problems versus like, hey, let's sing our problems away. Like the first introduction song, it's like Eternals the musical with all these characters. Okay, here's who this person is and that.
Yeah, that's kind of the point. We've had this argument before.
Yeah, I know. I'm just telling you. So I don't know. It still doesn't work.
Manuel's just like, hey, I've got a lot of exposition to get out. I'm skilled at getting out really exposition in a timely manner. Let's go.
That doesn't make it great though. It's just like, okay, let's just sing everything away. It's like, it's just this, instead of like, I want, like, you look at Frozen, you get like a set piece, you have like a tone, you got an atmosphere, stories being conveyed versus stories being told to you to barely a musical beat.
I
don't know. I respect the film, but I respect a film without a traditional villain like we usually have, and the whole thing we do with the grandmother. It's interesting, but ultimately, I'm really looking back on the movie here. It's that. I mean, obviously, there's some other problematic elements for me, like the whole indentured servitude. Hey, you have powers. You're now a slave to the town. You must do whatever the town says, and now they have an unrealistic expectation of solving their own problems. And why are we? and like, why is Bruno like living in the walls exactly? I mean, I don't know. It's if you really look back on that, like,
Family trauma.
well, yeah, but I mean, he's literally like living inside the walls, though. I mean, it's like, did they take it? Remind me, like, did they like
Did you
literally?
not see the moment where he has the plate set up and he wants to be a part of the family, but he's emotionally distant? I
Well,
mean,
no,
I
no,
don't
no,
know. I thought that was conveyed pretty
no,
damn
no, no, no,
well.
no, not that, Tiki. What I'm asking is like, did they literally cast him out? Like, did they say get out?
No, I'm guessing that he went on his own accord.
All right. I don't know.
Well, look, we're just going to have to agree to disagree here. I mean, it's not a shocker to say that this is not going to be on my next couple lists.
So let me put it this way. So ultimately, why it's like on the middle instead of like closer to the bottom and everything is that, again, like, logic issues aside, for me, it's like I think it looks great. It's, and I'm hoping at the end of the day, this movie. I get the vibe this could open more doors than it seems than it closes. I'm just hope that ultimately it doesn't lead to a new bland formula plug-in of like, hey, we're gonna be diverse. We're gonna set it all in like one location. We're not gonna do any villains or anything. We're just gonna plug it in and have people just basically sing through their problems.
I would honestly be down with that, but whatever.
I'm just saying, I hope it doesn't like. Hope
I
like
love the bottle
Encanto's.
episode quality of this movie.
I don't mind the like. I don't mind. It just feels like it's. I don't know. The scavenger hunt inside the house gets a little old on the reel. I don't know. It just.
Okay, I will give you this. The scene where she has to go through Bruno's tower to find the prophecy, that scene reads very much to me like, all right, we need to have something in the trailers to make it look like we're going on a big adventure. And honestly, Dragon, I do generally skip that scene when I'm watching the movie.
I don't know. There's like kind of like
Other than that, though, I think the movie flows together beautifully.
there's kind of like a telltale video game cutscene sort of vibe with the staging of like, okay, so she's gonna have all these epiphanies.
Dolores will remember that.
Inside the house and everything, and it's just ultimately like the running bit of like, hey, Mirabelle, don't you solve people's problems by talking to them. It just gets a little old after a while.
All right.
So that's what I'm saying. I think this thing. I just hope the success of this thing doesn't just make us like have a bunch of Encanto knockoffs going forward.
Totally fair. Okay. Let's see. I'm gonna have some comments here. Z&K said, like I said, with the fake out death stream, the things that drag it down for me is the ending feels like it's a bit rushed. Like it could have used some breathing room after Casita dies.
Yeah.
And Abuela still gives me some butt cluck vibes.
Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, I feel like Abuela is painted to be like more outwardly antagonistic than Buck Cluck. Whereas with Buck Cluck, it's like somehow you're kind of like supposed to oddly sort of be on his side. I don't know that. And then also Z&K's 8-year-old cousin is friends with Luisa's voice actress, apparently.
Oh, that's nice.
Pretty cool. All right. My favorite is still, I'm sorry. I know that he is like the TikTok fan favorite, but I love Camilio. I think that he's super fun. I think every time he's on screen, it just energizes the movie. All right. So let's see. We are at number 38. And Dragon, I will admit, these next few are kind of like exactly what you were talking about for me as far as like, you know, they're solid movies. They're not great. Some of them are classics. Some of them are just really good. And I didn't quite know where to place it. And honestly, Dragon, for my number 38, this is probably the movie that I had the toughest time placing. And that's Winnie the Pooh 2011. Because Winnie the Pooh 2011 is a very weird kind of enigma of a movie where it kind of like exists halfway between like, it's not necessarily a package film, but it's not necessarily a full narrative either. I think the weakest part of it is just the way that it does tell the story, because it very much just feels like it's kind of got that energy of a straight to video Disney sequel where it's just like, okay, like stuff happens and it's going to spin off into different like little side stories. But Dragon, what saves Winnie the Pooh? Obviously, we've got the last gasp of Disney 2D animation before it hopefully makes a comeback soon, as was teased by Eric Goldberg. And that 2D animation is incredible. And what I really love about this movie that I highlighted when you talked about it last time is this isn't just a throwback to like the Disney Renaissance. This is a throwback to the Walt era Disney movies in tone, in pacing, in vibes. And that to me is what's really impressive about this movie. The fact that like in 2012, releasing directly against Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2, which yes, was definitely a big mistake. But you know, it impresses me that they were able to take that risk and kind of have this movie be a little bit more low key and a little bit more downplayed and a little bit more peaceful. Obviously, I think the songs are a big standout. I think the Honey song in particular is wonderful. Some really great animation there. I think all of the characters are pretty well represented. There's one or two voice acting bits that feel a little off casting wise, but yeah, other than that, I don't have a ton to say about this one. It's just a very charming return trip to the 100-Acre Wood that feels very much in line with the kind of films that were being made in the era where the first Winnie the Pooh movie came out. All right. Just some comments here. ZNK said, "Oh, I also love Camilio as well. So many fun comics." ZNK said, "Like I said last week, if you were to take elements of 2011 with elements of Most Grand Adventure, then this had been incredible." Oh man, it's been a while since I've seen Pooh's Grand Adventure, but yeah, you're right. If they would have actually made it like a little bit more of a legit storyline, it could have been great. And I still think it's great. I still think it's great just based on, like I said, I think there is a true novelty to recapturing that Walt era charm and tone and pacing that this movie does not get credit for. Z&K, why no Gopher? Because Gopher was not in the original books. That's the answer to that question. Tell that to your friends next trivia night. All right. Fun fact, take a shot every time Eeyore's tongue mysteriously disappears. That's Tigger's shtick. Yeah, and that's another thing with the movie is that there are some gags that are pretty repetitive. I don't really care for the whole thing of like Christopher Robin leaving the note that says back soon, and they're like, "Oh, it's the back son." Like that.
Oh, come on, that's cute.
That to me feels like the most straight to DVD plot of the movie, where it's like the writers really couldn't think of a conflict. It's like back soon, back son. All right, but yeah, like I said, I'm kind of repeating myself here, but I mean, it's just sad that Gopher hasn't appeared. ZK, I am a fan of Gopher. I grew up with the mini. God, I forget what the Dragon. Do you know what the New Adventures of Winnie the Pooh? I believe is the Disney Channel show.
Wait, which one? Do you mean the one with the puppets?
No, not the one with the puppets. The 2D one.
No, not the suits. I mean the puppets. Like there was like kind of like a whole.
No. That's Pooh Corner.
Oh, okay.
I'm talking the one that has the theme song where it's like Pooh Bear, Winnie the Pooh Bear.
I can't tell you which one that is.
Okay, I'm pretty sure it's the New Adventures of Winnie the Pooh. So I grew up with that. And
I mean, again, if the puppet one wasn't that, then it's probably that. Yeah.
All right. Again, what happened with the books in Grand Adventure? Al Reed's School and New Adventures of Winnie the Pooh. That's
well,
there
we go.
All right. So yeah, Dragon. Let's move on. What's your number 38?
The Adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad.
Okay, nice. So this was my number 41, so we're not too far behind here.
Yeah, this one was tricky for me because I mean originally I had this a lot higher, but I mean reevaluating it, ultimately it's kind of like the package film thing I've been having.
There's one package film that's still on my list, by the way, and I think you're going to be pretty cheesed off to know where it places. It's going to come up soon, but yeah, anyways, go ahead.
My point. Honestly, again, it's kind of a frustrating thing when you look at it here. It's like a frustrating technicality more than it is like a frustrating thing like Sleeping Beauty was, where this one is like, I absolutely love, like, you know, the Sleepy Hollow short. You know, the Ichabod of our Tales. You know, it's a Halloween must-watch every year. Love it. Food animation, tremendous. You know, Bing Crosby singing. What's better?
Well, that's like the first thing you go to with Sleepy Hollow.
Seriously, though.
I mean, you're not wrong. You're not wrong.
I'd make an argument. Best food animation in Disney history. Quite possibly. Might be. So regardless, that's what I'm saying. Honestly, the thing is, like, Mr. Toad. I mean, I like the Mr. Toad set. Nothing against it. It's just obviously overshadowed by Ichabod Crane. Now, ultimately, the problem I have is that this, again, it's the example. It's like one of the ultimate examples of, again, the package film just being kind of the outdated model. Which these play really better as shorts than they do. Don't get me wrong. The framing device, I think, plays better than they usually do with the whole.
It does. It does.
Books on a
just
shelf.
a little library. Yeah.
The little library thing, but still,
it kind of like expands the whole idea of like the early framing devices with Disney movies with the books opening.
Exactly. So I mean, I like that. Don't get me wrong. It just still doesn't quite feel like a feature to me. So again, the package films always kind of have that working against them when we look back on them in the modern context, just knowing, well, now we have shorts at our fingertips, which we did not back then. Where this is like a well-watched VHS tape. So to me, it was a movie. But so just looking at it with that, I can't put it as high as I would have, because I mainly would have been putting it high for the Ichabod Crane of it all, which was not fair to the whole as a piece and the piece as a whole. And I don't know. I also like the ambiguous ending with Sleepy Hollow, which is great too. The whole did Ichabod it was speculated he went away with the family, or did he actually get killed by the headless?
And I said this on the last podcast, but with the Mr. Toad bit, I truly think that Mr. Toad's Wild Ride has absolutely eclipsed the actual Wind in the Willows segment as like that's what you think of in Disney canon when you think of Mr. Toad, is the ride, not the short.
Yeah, that's the other thing too. This thing did have some nice stay power though with that. That's kind of nice.
Okay, let's see. So Z&K says there's often some debate about whether or not the Headless Horseman is Brahm in disguise or an actual ghost. I think it's real. Where do you land on that, Dragon?
Well, again, I like the ambiguity that we don't know, but I mean, I don't know. Things did really work out well for Brahm Bones at the end there. I don't. Here's the thing. I remember in my younger years, and you and I spoke about this when we did the Haunted Holiday Hijinks on, is that as a kid I remember really liking Ichabod Crane, and I realized Ichabod Crane's kind of a jerk.
Ichabod Crane's a monster.
Yeah, he's doing a lot of really despicable things. I'm not saying Brahm's like super better, but he's not as bad as Ichabod Crane though when you think about it.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, in that regard, I kind of a part of me makes it used to be like, okay, maybe just have it be Brahm Bones so he survives, but maybe it is the Headless Horseman. Maybe we do kill him off. Maybe, because either way, Ichabod's going to win, even if he is scared out of town. He's going to kind of scam more widows and orphans, for all we know. Widows with children, but
All right, so we're getting into my number 37. I'm going to make that joke once.
In a row?
And this is very much another movie where it's like I've never really known what to do with it. It's 101 Dalmatians.
Ooh, I contemplated putting this on my list, but I didn't.
On this one?
Yeah, on this one I contemplated it, but I didn't.
Yeah, so 101 Dalmatians is a very interesting movie in the Disney canon, because I feel like it's there were definitely elements of it that were a big hit. Obviously, like the Xerox technology, although the Xerox technology did kind of go on to sort of define the visual look of the lazy kind of Rod Miller era movies.
Yeah, the assembly line years.
Yeah, but at the time it was impressive, for the amount of dogs on screen and all the spots and everything. Like
it was a necessity; they had to.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, like they made good use of the technology, whereas I feel like when Ron Miller did it, it was more so just like, yeah, let's do it on the cheap, let's crank it out. And obviously, this film has Cruella, and Cruella is like top tier Disney villain. I would wager to say she's a little bit better than Maleficent, because she's like her motivations aren't like more more relatable, but they are certainly scarier. And I don't know. I just think this film does have a really good kind of caper vibe to it. It's one of the few old Walt era Disney movies that still feels somewhat contemporary with its tone and its pacing. Although granted, I will say the first 20 minutes or so before the plot really gets going, it's not that it's boring. It's certainly not boring. It's just very, very, very laid back. And like all the stuff about, Roger going to the park and meeting Anita and all that stuff like that. that stuff is very laid back and charming. It's not necessarily the kind of pacing you'd see in today's sort of animated movies. But once the plot kicks into high gear, Dragon, once the Dalmatians actually get kidnapped, it does kind of go at a rather brisk pace. And I do think that this might have set the stage for kind of like that brand of Disney movie where it's not a musical, it's more so of like kind of like a road trip adventure movie, like very much in the vein of something like Bolt. And I think it does it really well. Obviously, you have some really great set pieces. I think the best set piece in the movie is probably the Twilight Bark. I think that's just like an iconic set piece in general for animals in cinema. It's a very, very memorable, famous, relatable moment. And then the whole third act is just fraught with peril, fraught with suspense. I don't know. I do think the film is a little bit lean on character and a little bit lean on on personality, but I think it makes up for it in just kind of like style, tone. It's got a fast pace for the time period. Obviously, Cruella is a great villain. I think Horace and Jasper are great, kind of like sidekick villains. They fit that sort of early archetype really well. So this film's got a lot going for it. I just think that in the grand scheme of the Walt era movies, it's not the most memorable thing in the world. It's pretty mid tier for the Walt era movies, but it did a lot of stuff right. And I did kind of struggle on where to place this one. All right, let's see comments here. We watched 101 a lot growing up, says Theme Park Priest. It's got that nice British charm to it, like Pooh, Wallace and Gromit, and Kuiper the dog. It does have a British charm to it, for sure. Okay, Dragon, what is your number 37?
Raya and the Last Dragon.
Oh wow. Okay, I'm surprised it made it this high on your list.
Yeah. So again, honestly, the bottom five of this list kind of were in flux. If I'm being honest, they kind of kept shifting positions. But yeah. So Raya and the Last Dragon. So I mean, yes. Look, it might be Avatar: Last Airbender, but that's not a bad thing. I wish more things were like Avatar: Last
Dragon,
Airbender.
careful what you say. We don't want to get canceled.
Well, I'm saying nice things about it, though.
It doesn't matter.
All right, fine. Regardless, I remember when this came out, I really enjoyed it. And I do rather enjoy it. It's I think what impresses me most about this, I love how developed the world is. Because the biggest fear was like, oh god, they're going to throw a lot at us and not a lot of time. With like 5 different tribes, but they found a way to make it really fluid and connected with the whole. Like each land is a different part of the dragon. Daniel Day Kim, he's great as the chief.
Again, Disney has been killing it with their dads lately.
Yeah, it's going to be a good Father's Day for Disney.
It is.
So yeah, I mean,
we should do that for Father's Day, Dragon. Just kind of like highlight all the awesome dads that we've been getting recently.
Yeah. Well, I won't commit anything to writing, but we'll see.
Yeah, just throwing it out there as an idea. Anyways.
So I mean, I remember like with this movie, like I'm rooting for Raya, who's just trying to save everyone, including her father, because they've been turned into statues, and it's sad. I left the. So I mean, I like the There's a great kind of simplicity of we got a goal to achieve. We have like the kind of the almost end game-esque kind of 5 years later element to it. Years have passed. Let's see. I remember the things I'm not crazy about the movie. I think the Ninja Baby was a push too far. I mean, it's fine, but it feels like a little too cartoony, given like the reality we had established really well up front.
Yeah, I can see that.
I like the trust message. I do. I really like it because it's a fact that it's always a risk, and it does backfire from time to time. And your only recourse is, but you got to hope it's going to pay off the next time. Again, otherwise you're sunk. You're in a position where you have to trust this person. You got to hope maybe like they'll see reason or something. And I like how we kind of counterbalance that with the very we teach Raya this lesson. Again, she has every reason in the world not to trust Namari, as we saw in the opening. We have our very naive character with Sisu, or Aquafina Dragon, to demonstrate that. I don't know. I'll admit though, the fake out death was really dumb. We should have. I think the movie would have earned a lot of points had had Sisu stayed dead after the whole
Oh, I agree.
Had that happened, I think the movie would have earned a lot more points in regards to how the whole Aquafina thing was handled. I think, I don't know. I love the symbolism of the soup. I love how the soup was like a piece of like an ingredient from every land. It was symbolic of them all working in
It's no
harmony.
High Dad soup.
Of course not. Tiki? What can possibly be High Dad soup? Don't talk crazy to me here, man. Incomparable. That was father son bonding in a can.
I know.
Heated with the warmth of a cigarette lighter.
Oh God.
Anyway, so I mean, the movie has some really good action. It's got heart. It's got fun characters. It didn't reinvent the wheel, admittedly, but it was refreshing. That was the biggest thing to walk away with that movie. Is that, man, Disney, they kind of found something. And unfortunately, the time it came out, there were unfortunate circumstances in which I don't think it quite got the fair shake that it should have. But when everyone saw it, I think a lot of people had nice things to say about it before then people talking about the movie got in trouble. But that's what that is for reasons. But yeah.
Okay, my number 36. This has always been a difficult one for me, man, because this movie has really, really solid elements, and it is kind of a return to form in some ways. But it's got other things that just kind of hold it back for me a little bit, most notably in the second act. And that's Princess and the Frog.
Really?
Yeah, this has always been a tricky one for me because I love certain elements of this movie. Dr. Facilier, just as far as a villain design goes, is just absolute top tier. I love his design to death. I do wish he had a more active role in the movie overall, though, because he just kind of seems to come and go, depending on the plot. And honestly, I am kind of like, I feel the same way about Tiana's transformation that I felt about Joe's transformation in Soul, where it's like, here we have like a very big first African-American character in a Disney movie, the first African-American princess. And we put her in a frog body for like 80% of the screen time. And Dragon, I'm not screaming racism, all right? I want to make this clear. I don't think that was an intentionally racist move. I really don't. I'm not that triggered by it. But I do think it's a little tone deaf. I really do think it's a little tone deaf, especially because the first act of the movie went out of its way to make Tiana strong and likable and relatable, and not in that kind of like strong, independent woman type thing, but more in just kind of like, she's a go-getter, the Always There song. She's got a very realistic goal. So yeah, I don't know, man. I really wish the movie would have focused more on New Orleans instead of the Bayou. I'm not saying the Bayou is a bad setting, because there are some fun set pieces to be had there. But I do think that New Orleans, just the way it's animated, the way it's presented, the culture of it, it's a very rich setting, just the city itself. And I really wish that more of the movie would have actually taken place there. It's just one of those things where, I don't know. You just like the stuff in the Bayou is fine. But first of all, I think the relationship stuff is a little bit rushed for me personally. People will probably disagree with that.
Well, you know what I think it is.
What?
I think the problem. I think the issue is that they couldn't just have it be kind of the like literally kind of the Princess and the Frog. They kind of made it into like, well,
if it was Tiana following around the frog, I think that would have been 10 times better.
That exactly, that's what I mean. Where it's basically, it's like it can't just be the Frog Prince. Like, no, it's got to be the Frog Princess. It's like, why can't we just have it be that and just let her like kind of have her compelling story and then.
And unfortunately, I feel like that's a case of Disney just being a little bit too like clever for their own good. Of like they're thinking that this is going to be like a really cool. A really cool kind of twist on the fairy tale, but in reality, it just kind of gives your main character less agency, which is really unfortunate.
It makes her, because again, we were there in Ground Zero when the guy got turned into a frog. So by ipso fact, it's kind of like Emperor's New Groove logic. Well, you want to see him get turned into a human again.
Totally.
So it's like, why are we then kind of again? It feels like we're kind of knocking off. Like it feels like the transformation thing is just getting a little kind of we keep doing it,
Yeah, again, Soul. If we ever do a Pixar ranking, I am
Yeah, you'll
that
have no
movie.
help from me on that one.
Whatever, that's fine. That movie does not sit well with me, especially upon further reflection. But
Yeah.
all right, Facilier's design is just an evil Oscar Proud. Oh, that's great. That's
It's
great.
delightful, though. I mean, that'd be great because they're doing that. Have you
Can
watched
you
any of
imagine
the?
just evil Oscar Proud as a Disney villain? And he's got the same gimmick, like he's an inventor, but he makes evil
Well,
inventions.
what we've seen, remember the Proud Family movie? We've kind of seen Evil Oscar, and Evil Oscar was awesome. Remember, he had the thing for hot dogs and everything. It's
Oh
like,
god.
do it for the hot dogs. I do like the hot dogs.
Let's see. ZK said, "Let me tell you, I regret not seeing this in theaters, and since then, I've been able to see all other Walt Disney Animation Studios movies in theaters, minus Raya, because the plague." Fair. There's been some comics fanfic about Tiana staying a human about throughout the journey. Yeah. So, one thing about the movie Dragon that I see people kind of criticizing is the side characters, but I gotta tell you, I think Louis fine. Like, I don't think he's a deep character by any respect, but I think he's fine. And the one that people really seem to shit on is the one character that I think is probably the heart of the movie for me, and that's Ray.
Really?
Yeah. What are your feelings on Ray? Just out of
No,
curiosity.
I think Ray's great. It's just the payoff with Angel. It's Angeline,
Ray
right?
is very unpopular with the YouTube animation community for some reason. I have no idea why.
I had no idea, but I thought Ray was universally beloved. I mean, how can you not after his very tragic death?
I know. So I was shocked by that. I like because basically I keep hearing like, oh, screw that damn Firefly. I was happy he got stepped on. I'm like, what? Are you crazy?
That's crazy.
Yeah. So I am absolutely Ray is delightful. Another classic Cummings character. Yeah, thank you, Z&K.
Yeah,
Like, I
Z&K's
don't want to
asking.
shout out specific channels because I don't want to start YouTube drama over fucking Ray the Firefly of all things, but yeah, I don't know. I don't really know where people are coming from with this whole like Ray is obnoxious.
Well, I mean, the only thing I can see with Ray is that Ray's whole thing was that he was almost zealot like in his belief that the stars in the sky were spirits, ergo like his that he was in love with that he might. I don't know if he had a lost love or the idea is he basically he
I
made.
mean, I feel like that element of his character is pretty profound and like not like you don't often see what on paper is kind of just like a pretty simple Disney comic relief character. You don't often see something like that, like kind of like a tragic element of his character. Like, I don't know. I thought it was super unique.
Yeah, I don't get it. So Z&K says was Facilier's voice ever in the Predators? Keith David. I mean, I'm pretty sure Keith David appeared at least once in the Predators, but I cannot for the life of me think of. It would have been a guest role. I just don't know who.
I'll Google.
Oh wait, I know. Oh my god, I know he was. Yes, he was in the movie. He voiced. They did get him in there once. He was in the Pratt Family movie, voicing one of the babies. I think BB from BB and CC. When the baby was a clone, he had a voice for like the first time
you
ever.
go. Right.
It was Keith David. Just give it a necklace. Keith David, right there.
That's great. That's great. All right. Z&K says the fireflies that got stuck up in there in that big bluish black thing. All right. Okay, Dragon, what is your number 36?
Robin Hood.
Robin Hood. Oh man. You know what? This came pretty close to making it onto this list. I bumped it up to the next list, but yeah, I don't know. Robin Hood's a very interesting movie. Go ahead and talk about it.
Yeah, so I'll admit, Robin Hood, very nostalgic pull for sure. I mean, to me, this is like the go-to.
I have nostalgia blinders on for Robin Hood hardcore. I'll admit that.
This is kind of like a tempered version of that nostalgia here. Where basically I did go back to it, and I do say, let me this way. I think it holds up well enough, but it could hold up a little better. Where it's like this is the go-to Robin Hood adaptation. Also, it's like it's like the landmark example of the anthropomorphic animal movie. I mean, when Zootopia was coming out, first thing everyone thought of when they saw Nick, Robin Hood. So yes, this is Disney kind of in that cheap period with the animation, but again, there's like a rustic kind of quality to it. You know, it's kind of like a rustic kind of nostalgic, kind of like, oh yeah, this is how we. The best. This is gonna be a weird example. I use this occasionally, but I think the best way I could describe this movie is like, this movie's very iconic, despite it being kind of the "Are You My Mother" of the Dr. Seuss book lineup. If you will. Or again, Are You My Mother? Good book, but still, it's not like written by Dr. Seuss, just like in the art style by somebody else, like the little cat in the hat sticker on the side, but not Dr. Seuss. So I mean, it's kind of like it feels like the Disney brand, and again, it's a well-worn VHS tape. Don't get me wrong, we have some Errol Flynn charm in places, which I like. But again, it's the richness. There's a richness to the Disney brand, and there's like kind of a nice little love story at the heart of it. It's just even if it wasn't the most impressive feature, it just even if we did reuse a lot of animation, even if it, we do have like a lot of standout elements. It's just really I don't think the story holds up like as it doesn't flow as well as I remembered it, but it does kind of hold up like, oh man, that's still kind of a nice movie. Look at what they did there. This is kind of again, it was like an example of Disney in that kind of 70s ish period. I forget if it was in the 70s or not, but regardless, it was kind of that changeover period where there's kind of that consistent but kind of downgraded style, but still there was kind of somewhat of a grit to it that I appreciated.
Okay. All right, my next one's going to piss you off, Dragon. It's going to piss you off. I know it is. I'm sorry.
Well, then we need to change the number.
What?
Well,
yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
So my number 35 is kind of like a mirror image of Dumbo, where it's a stone cold classic, but unfortunately it does have a lot of problematic elements to it, and that's Peter Pan. Now, look, I feel like at number 35, like at this point, we're more than halfway through the list. Like I feel like this is a pretty solid placement for it, regardless. Peter Pan certainly does have a lot of good things going for it. I honestly think the ending might be one of the best things it has, because that ending is like one of the very few Disney endings that leaves you with kind of like a sense of like ambiguous, like kind of like whimsical magic rather than just like, and they all lived happily ever after. I do think Peter Pan obviously has a very, very good, rich sense of adventure to it. The problem with Peter Pan for me is twofold. One, obviously, just to, I can't just pretend that the Red Man sequence doesn't exist, and I really do think that it's probably the most offensive thing in any Walt Disney Animation Studios movie. And not only can I not pretend it doesn't exist, but unfortunately, the Indians and that whole plot, like, it's a pretty big part of the movie, Dragon, because you have the following the leader thing, and you have them rescuing Tiger Lily, like really, like, what makes the Red Man red is kind of like, unfortunately, kind of like a centerpiece to the plot, which really kind of makes it hard to just sort of like ignore it. And then my other big issue with it, and I'm not sure if you're going to agree with this point, on a rewatch, Dragon, I really didn't care for either Peter or Wendy. And I thought that the film overall had a very kind of childish tone. And yeah, I know it's Peter Pan. The whole point is never grow up and everything like that. But I don't know, man. Like the dialogue in this movie, if you actually go back and rewatch it, the dialogue in this movie is pretty damn forced and pretty damn like sugary and sentimental. And it's very much got that kind of like, this is what kids in the 50s used to talk like. And because of that, there is a little bit of a disconnect there. Credit where credit's due with Captain Hook and Mr. Smee and everything like that. They're great. Really, I think it's the main characters that are kind of the problem in this movie, oddly enough. I don't really care for any of the darling children. And
so you're saying they're not darlings to you?
Well, I mean, they're fine, dude. It's like they're just kind of like very, very, very generic. It's like Michael is just kind of like the generic sweet younger brother. John is the generic nerd. just very, very blank slate characters that don't really have a lot of actual personality going on. And then you got the Lost Boys, and the Lost Boys have great designs, but they're all pretty much, an amalgamation. Like they're like together, they represent like one personality essentially. So obviously, I think the big strength of this movie is the villains. I mean, Hans Conried is just impeccable as Captain Hook. Frank Thomas's animation of Captain Hook is wonderful. The crocodile stuff, all that stuff is great. And obviously, without this movie, you wouldn't have Peter Pan's Flight, which is like one of the best dark rides ever in the theme park industry. I stick by that. Even though it's very simple and very quick and very short, it's still just absolutely beautiful. But yeah, man, there's just too many dated elements in Peter Pan for me to really put it much higher. And I think this is a pretty fair ranking for it for me personally. All right. Let's see. Comments here. We have ever noticed that Hook's hat is always destroyed in battle? Odd recurring trait. I did notice that.
Mm-hmm.
The color palette was done by Mary Blair, so yeah, it does have a pretty fantastic color palette because of that.
Oh yeah.
All right. Okay. So yeah, Dragon, what's your number 35?
The Great Mouse Detective.
Okay. Now, yeah, you'll remember this was kind of like high up on my last list, and for me, it just didn't really grab me as far as like the mystery elements go. But what do you have to say about it?
I don't know. I think it's probably, I'm probably forgetting something right now. It's probably the best of the '80s, kind of Disney period for me of the films that came. Not counting stuff like The Little Mermaid, obviously, but I'm saying like kind of really in the thick of the '80s period for Disney. It's. I mean, obviously, there's always like the fun backstory with the Great Mouse Detective with the name change, where it's supposed to be Basil Baker Street, and it ended up being the whole Jeopardy ruckus ended up on Jeopardy. The whole like the Great Mouse Detective. Basically, Disney was thinking it was like really insulting. They just watered down what their really clever kind of title and what the purpose of their film was. It's a Sherlock Holmes parody, The Great Mouse Detective. It's like, get it, kids? Because kids aren't clever. They aren't smart.
I mean, it's pretty much what Rescue Rangers was making fun of with the bootleg titles,
Yeah, exactly. So again, the Great Mouse Detective was very much like the turning point at that point, or basically kind of the artist bumping up against the the suits for a bit there. I mean, this movie has a lot going for it. I love how it plays with scale very well. It's a very charming idea. It's the mouse that lives underneath Sherlock Holmes' house. Ergo, it basically thinks it's Sherlock Holmes to a degree. At least it's emulating Sherlock Holmes. Ratigan, a lot of fun. Of course, Vincent Price. Of course, he goes from like very kind of campy to ultimately very very scary in the third.
One of the great Disney villain designs.
Yeah, I mean, a great design, also a spectacular. It's very underestimated. The third act of The Great Mouse Detective, just spectacular. I believe it's the first, if not, I think it's the first use of the cap system. It might technically be. Everyone forgets about it, but I believe so.
I'm pretty sure there's some stuff in Black Cauldron, but it's definitely the first like big set piece that was animated almost entirely using that.
Yeah, like the clock tower and everything. Just, it looks great, and obviously we're taking the whole the traditionally Sherlock Holmes fights Moriarty, and they kind of take a great fall, kind of over a waterfall traditionally, but kind of in foggy old London. I don't know. It looks really. It was during in the rain and everything. It was a really kind of neat update on that. I just sorry. I love there's a great bit with the Ratigan where he he has the death trap set, and I love that he lays out like the death trap says, I was just gonna let this mouse trap kill you, but then I decided to use them all. He's surrounded by all these death traps, and I don't know. There's just kind of there's a charm, a simplicity to it, but I just think the ultimately Tiki, it's one of the examples where the final image of the film just sums everything up perfectly. Where you have this shot where Basil doesn't want to be alone. And he has kind of his Watson-y figure there, and he's kind of going over the next case. The dog is listening in, just like eager, like, oh boy, I can't wait for the next case. And you pan back and you reveal the violin music is coming from the real Sherlock Holmes on Baker Street. Like I don't know. There's something really. A lot of people have obviously loved, because it was up against this when it came out. The Don Bluth of it all. And there was like a Don Bluthian kind of charm to it, but I think there's something still kind of original in there. It's like, well, if Disney's going to do their mouse movie, this is how they do their mouse movie. It's quite, it's quite charming.
Sure. Okay, this is going to go by pretty quick because we've kind of talked along in the face about this movie already. But number 34 is Fox and the Hound. Quite simply, I'm just going to kind of speed past this because, like I said, we've extensively talked about this one. I think this is a very, very underrated movie. Really interesting to see kind of like the birth of Tim Burton in this movie. I don't know if this is the first one he worked on, but it was one of the Disney movies that he was most prominently involved in.
I know he, Glenn Keane, and John Lasseter had roles on this movie.
So, I just think with this movie, it's just a very, very bold idea. And I don't know, it does have, I feel like Robin Hood is more watchable than this movie as far as, if you want a really nice, kind of breezy, good time party of a movie, then yeah, sure, pop on Robin Hood. But this is the Shakespearean tragedy of the Ron Miller era. I mean, this is the movie of the Ron Miller era, thematically, I think that easily has the most substance to it. And I mean, I don't even really need to get into detail about that. I mean, like I said, we've kind of talked blue in the face about how good the allegory in this thing works. Obviously, Chief should have died. That that is a big talking point in this movie that you and I both agree with.
Wasn't it like Copper or something? You sure it was Chief?
Yeah, Chief is the one that was that fell off the bridge. Yeah.
Okay.
And, so obviously that should have happened. It would have made the third act 10 times more dramatic. But still, man, I mean, just the fact that this movie does kind of have all that sort of quote unquote racial tension that is very on the nose in a good way. I mean, it's super suspenseful in some parts. And, the fact that it does kind of wrap up with a happy ending, but not a sugary sweet ending, more of kind of all right, we've come to an agreement sort of thing. I will say I do not like the Paul Winchell woodpecker character. I think he kind of drags the movie down a little bit.
Yeah.
Do you agree?
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
I mean, I won't go on a tear about it. I just think
I wouldn't say it's like a huge drag, but it's yeah, do we need the woodpecker?
He's pretty repetitive, and he's pretty obviously just put in there because, oh, geez, this movie's pretty sad. We need some comic relief to lighten up the mood.
It could be worse. He could say, ah.
Oh my god. So yeah, pretty simple, pretty straightforward ranking there. I couldn't in good consciousness put it in the top 30, but it's pretty close to the top 30, so I'm pretty happy with that. All right, number 34, Dragon.
Alice in Wonderland.
Ooh, okay, yeah. This is actually not quite as high up on my list as you might think it is. It's not in the top 10, surprisingly. So I'll give you that little nugget. But obviously, I adore this movie stylistically.
Well, that's ultimately where I kind of come down on it. Alice in Wonderland has never really been my bag. It's not my go-to Disney movie. But by the same token, which again, you're probably wondering why is it so high on the list? Well, that's the thing, though. I mean, it is I think it is the definitive Alice in Wonderland adaptation, though. I think they got everything right there. And again, the whole psychedelic, we're kind of pre-60s. I mean, it's Alice in Wonderland gives us the psychedelic elements in the first place. It's, I don't know.
It's Alice in Wonderland and Fantasia, those two.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So it's kind of fun that they're giving birth to that to a degree. One could say, the trippy animation, like the Cheshire Cat, and I think my favorite, the doorknob. I love the doorknob.
The doorknob, of course, one of the few characters that's original to the film.
Yep, I love that. Ultimately, the history of Disney. I mean, there is no Walt Disney really rising to his success without Alice, without the Alice character, with the Alice comedies and everything. So it's kind of cyclical in that regard.
Of course.
I don't know. The movie again had a huge impact. I mean, again, with this being again, when I think of Alice in Wonderland, I think a lot of people were thinking of this before thinking of the Tim Burton version. might be a few people
Dragon,
out
I
there.
would hope so. I would really, really, really hope so.
I'm just saying, historically, every time I'm watching, like when I was a kid watching
I
Batman
mean,
the
the
Animated.
Tim Burton version, the thing that offends me about that movie is the whole, like, oh, it's a prophecy now. We're going to turn it into a chosen one story.
Right.
And I'm like, what are you doing?
Say it's like when I'm watching Batman the Animated Series, and they have a Mad Hatter episode, and he's referring to Alice in Wonderland. I'm thinking of this.
For sure.
Of course, the Walrus and the Carpenter interlude was always like the most haunting element of the movie for me. Just that whole story, like, oh god, they're gonna eat all these poor little.
But I love how chipper that song is at the same time.
Yep. God. Again, got crazy climax with I believe it's it's like croquet, isn't it? Isn't that cricket? Cricket. They're playing cricket, aren't they?
Croquet.
Oh, it is croquet. So I was right the first time. Okay. Yeah. So I like that. Obviously, the queen. It's the Queen of Hearts, isn't it, or is it the Queen of Diamonds? I just want to make
Queen
sure
of Hearts.
Right. That's what I thought. So the Queen of Hearts, a lot of fun. Obviously, I completely forgot about I believe it's her husband playing the king, right? Like,
oh my god, the king is delightful.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's like there are some really fun elements to it. I mean, obviously, when I think else, when I'm thinking like she's eating a little cookie and she turns giant, or like she's drinking a little thing. It's like very
changing perspectives.
Yeah, really great perspective. Shifts
one
there.
One makes you taller.
Yeah. Anyway, so honestly, at the end of the day,
other such drug references.
Okay. Anyway, so
right, sorry.
So ultimately, I think the movie is nonsense, but beautifully animated nonsense. In which, I mean, it's like I have trouble. It's like I have a hard time watching a movie in regards of I can only enjoy it aesthetically. It's just I can't really wrap my mind around it because again, it's a little too psychedelic for my taste. But I do appreciate that it is that, and I do like respect the artistry and how good it looks. It's just like I'm not grabbing onto a story, but it does look darn pretty. Yeah.
Let's see. Z&K says, story I heard is that the 2010 Alice was the job Tim had to do for Disney to fund the Frankenweenie movie. I've never heard that, but
yeah,
I
mean, when did Frankenweenie come out in 2012?
I believe it. Yeah, I've actually still haven't gotten around to that one.
I think we might. Well, again, I'm not saying anything officially here, folks. It may or may not be on the books in the future. I don't know. Anyway. But Frankenweenie's it actually checked out, man. It was pretty good.
Would you say it's better than Corpse Bride?
How did you feel about Corpse Bride?
I thought it was just kind of for the most part.
I think you'd like it more than Corpse Bride. I don't know. For me, it's better than Corpse Bride. I don't know. I think you'd like.
Monkey says Frankenweenie was 2012.
I mean, that would track with that. I don't know if that's true. I don't know if they can really strong arm a guy like that. But then again, it is Disney. They do have all the.
Look at Musker and Clements, dude.
So that's the thing. So by that logic, you would imagine like, well, yeah, it's like, hey Tim, you want to come back and do your stop motion movie? That remember, the Frankenweenie is like that was like Tim Burton's essentially his first film. I think like one of the first things he did. And
that and Vincent, yeah,
that's what I'm saying. Like that and Vincent. So you'd imagine it's a passion project for him. And he, last time he did a stop motion film with Disney, it went like gangbusters. Mm-hmm. So it's like, hey Tim, you want to do stop motion? Yeah. Well, if you want to do it, we need a little something from you. We need your name. And we need you to do a Disney live action remake. Okay.
Well, at least it's not Dumbo.
Yeah, it would never happen.
Let's get ready for Dumbo.
All right.
Twice. They did it twice.
Okay.
Lindsay Ellis. Anyways. Right. Okay. Number 33 on my end, Dragon. Oh boy. I'm honestly kind of surprised because I have heaped this movie's praises for a long time. But I will say on rewatch, I do see kind of like the holes in it. I had to go Fantasia 2000.
Okay.
And I know that Fantasia 2000 is coming up on your list. So it's not your 33?
Actually, it is.
Oh, perfect. All right. So let's just tag team it.
Yeah. Okay. So number 33, Fantasia 2000.
Yeah.
I like it better than most, which I think is why it's this high on the list for us.
What's funny is that I still consider myself liking it better than most, but like there was a time when I was like crazy enough to think it was better than the original Fantasia. I'm like, what the fuck was I thinking?
Yeah. I don't know. Here, I mean, here's probably where your thinking was, Tiki. Is that it's a little more, there's a little more polish with the animation. It's got great music choices as Fantasia's want to have. I'll admit though, celebrities bit of like kind of a star power cash in choice. It's like, yeah, well, we need to measure up, and how the heck do we measure up against Fantasia? Well, star power. Like, well, we've accumulated star power. Let's throw it on the screen.
So you know what's interesting about the celebrities is I feel like some of them obviously really don't work. That whole bit about the melting clock sky is pretty infamous, for example.
Right.
But I do think some of them really do work. I love seeing Steve Martin here. I think Steve Martin is just like a classy Disney legend who just like belongs in a classy event like this. Obviously, I have a huge soft spot for the Penn and Teller segment in this movie.
Yeah. Well, how was Steve Martin a Disney legend?
Because he started his career as a Jungle Cruise skipper.
Oh, really? I didn't know that. He did?
Yeah.
Huh.
And also the Magic Shop too. I think he started at the Magic Shop, worked his way up to skipper.
Okay.
Anyways, so yeah, this is definitely a like it's got really big highlights to it. I think Firebird is fantastic. I wouldn't necessarily call it better than Bald Mountain Ave Maria, just because that is just like an absolute like towering freaking like monument to the power of art in animation. So it's like, but it's still damn good. I mean, it's like, it's got a really compelling narrative with the way that they use the moose as kind of like a firsthand character to see the story through. At the end of the day, Dragon, I really do think that what brought this movie down for me was the actual selection of shorts. Now, let me go through them, because there's not a lot of bad ones, but you have Pines of Rome, which honestly, rewatching Pines of Rome, I feel like the more time that goes on since Pines of Rome,
whales, right?
What? Yeah, that's the whales.
Yeah, the
one,
whales.
yeah.
Whales is always like a weird choice to me. Why did we go with
whales? The whales used to blow me away, but it just like I feel like the more time that's passed, the more it just feels like kind of a dated tech demo. I love the music, and I think some of the imagery is really good. I just kind of think it's a little bit repetitive in its execution. Obviously, I think Rhapsody in Blue is probably like the standout.
Easily my favorite the fact that Eric Goldberg got to do the Al Hirschfeld style of caricature and do it with like a really excellent piece of music about with the city, and it's wonderful. I love it.
But then sadly, I really don't feel like the rest of the movie. I mean, Firebird is great, but
they saved. They went on a high note though with Firebird.
There's a whole middle chunk here that I'm really not crazy about. Frankly, even as a kid, Steadfast Tin Soldier kind of bored me. I don't really like the music because it's just kind of like a very simple little piano thing, and it doesn't really feel like Fantasia as far as the music goes. And I don't really like the animation style there. It feels like a very, very, very like proto Paperman look of like, doing the 2D and 3D thing, but it looks rough. Let's see. You got Sorcerer's Apprentice thrown in there, and I'm just like, all right. Like, Dragon, at this point, I am a little bit burned out by Sorcerer's Apprentice. Like, it's obviously a classic short, and it's famous for a reason. But you know what? I got to tell you, if I'm doing a watch of Fantasia, and I'm sorry, folks, but I'm just gonna. This is something about myself. Occasionally, I will feel like just if I've got the night off of podcasts or something, I'll maybe smoke a little something and turn on Fantasia. And when I do that, Dragon, when I indulge in Fantasia in that way, I tend to either skip Sorcerer's Apprentice or use it as a bathroom break, because it's like it's great from a character point of view, but it's probably the least artistically ambitious of all that movie. But then after that, you have the yo-yo thing, which is a really, really fun segment. I wish it would have gone on a little bit longer. It doesn't really feel like Fantasia, though. Then you have the Noah's Ark scene, which is, I I feel like that and the Carnival of Animals kind of coming one after another it's a little bit too much. Like, all right, this doesn't feel like Fantasia at this point. It more feels like just a package film that happens to have classical music, just because things are getting a little too cartoony and too broad. With the Noah's Ark thing, I do think that the ending is great. I think that they have, the whole thing where Daisy and Donald both think each other's dead. That's pulled off pretty well, but it's still pretty damn cartoony. And then Firebird kind of ends things out. So you see what I'm saying, Dragon? It's like, I feel like the original Fantasia, that lineup of shorts is just impeccable, just absolutely impeccable. And then Fantasia 2000, it just feels a little bit more thrown together. I feel like it ends pretty abruptly. Like the movie, I'm pretty sure the movie is close to Dumbo as far as being one of the shorter feature-length Disney movies out there. It's pretty close to just being a 60-minute film. So yeah. Anything else you want to say about it?
I don't know. I think ultimately the shorts that we do have that really work for it, and that kind of necessitated coming back. But but you're right though. There is a sort of like some placeholders there, and we're waiting to get to the good stuff with Fantasia, which is it's unfortunate. But I do like the idea of like coming back with new material. It's a shame we couldn't get like kind of the same kind of like oomph that we had.
I mean, I would love another Fantasia nowadays, dude.
Yeah.
Especially if they like combine animation styles. I think that's a natural evolution of.
Let me ask you this though: if we did Fantasia now, like Fantasia 3000 or whatever you want to call it, Fantasia re-energized, what have you, would we do it as a series of shorts in like kind of like a Disney Plus sort of arena?
Ooh.
Would they do it? Like, do you think they'd give it a feature?
I feel like unless it's a feature, it wouldn't really be Fantasia.
Exactly. And do you think they do that though?
It depends.
Like corporate thinking, I don't know if they do. They should do that as a feature. I don't think they will though.
I don't think they will either, but I'd love to see it.
Okay.
All right. So Dragon, we're just gonna just jump on to my number 32 then.
Yep. And
bless his soul, Herc was on a roll. Number 32 is Hercules.
Huh. Okay.
And this is definitely the black sheep of the Disney Renaissance for me.
Really? Come on, Pocahontas is the black sheep of the Disney Renaissance.
Okay, it's funny that you mentioned Pocahontas because Pocahontas is certainly the black sheep as far as like the critical reception and everything. But Dragon, as we already talked about with Pocahontas, it plays pretty low on both our lists. I had it a little bit higher. But I have a nostalgic soft spot for Pocahontas. Like, I enjoy Pocahontas on kind of a so bad it's good level, and there's also certain elements of that movie that I just unironically like the music and the art design. Hercules, to me, Dragon, it's always just kind of been lesser Aladdin.
Really?
Yeah, where
lesser Aladdin.
It's got that same kind of vibe and tone and energy. It's got the same sort of like celebrity voice cast, but it just doesn't sing as much as a lot of the 90s films do for me. And I think a big reason for that is honestly just because of how the plot is told. I just think that I think the story and the pacing in this one is a little awkward. We spend a lot of time with the gods at the beginning. And then, we kind of have like that whole like Clark Kent origin story thing. And I like, we get the I Want song and then Phil. And you see what I'm saying? It's like this film feels more like a series of events than it does an actual story to me. Mm-hmm. Now, of course, you've got great elements to it. Megara is probably the like top tier Disney love interest for sure, I would say. Obviously James Woods is a great villain, but I don't know. I just feel like I can't even really put my finger on it, but there's certain disparate elements in this movie that just really don't come together for me all that well. I mean, I already mentioned, I think probably one of the one of the big cardinal sins of this movie is that it has one of the worst Disney fake out deaths, just because it's like it's so melodramatic. And yet we go to the scene with Hercules and his father, and it's just like they're literally like giving each other high fives. And then we cut right back to Meg, and he's like, no, no.
Well,
And it's very literal, total whiplash for me, Dragon. Like
giving his father a high five. I think you're talking about Phil. Like that wasn't Zeus.
Okay, well, yeah, whatever. But I'm just saying, like, the whole thing of like, oh, let me show you how your old man works. You know, like you know, we're having a good time. I don't know.
Right.
Herc is one of my favorites from an art design standpoint. Yeah, I don't know. Using someone as offbeat as Gerald Scarf while still retaining Disney feel makes it feel unique, like Turning Red and Luca. Ooh, that's an interesting comparison, ZNK. That's an interesting comparison, and I honestly wish I had the time to rewatch the movie with that comparison in mind. Because to me, the only reason why I kind of use the whole Aladdin thing is because it's another kind of like, it's another take on a popular sort of folklore. You know, Aladdin is more so like folklore. This is obviously like Greek gods and stuff, but you know, you've got like all the contemporary stuff. I do think some of the contemporary stuff in this movie has aged a little bit. Some of the commercialism is very 90s. I feel like the Zero to Hero stuff is very much like a one for one of like, it's obvious that they're trying to make him Michael Jordan. And that doesn't kill the film or distract it or anything. I'm just saying it does. I feel like this movie feels like a product of its time more than most of the Disney Renaissance films do. And that's really kind of where I come down on it. Even Pocahontas, honestly. Because Pocahontas, for all of its flaws, it still feels ambitious. Yeah, I'm really losing Z and K on this. I'm sorry, Z and K. Points for subjectivity. You know,
let them have it, Z and K. It's fine.
Anyways, so yeah, I knew that. I know that Hercules is a big fan favorite for a lot of people. And honestly, Dragon, I really do think one of the things that this has going against it is out of all the Renaissance movies, this is definitely the one that I watched the least. And I honestly don't know why.
I don't know why either.
Yeah, I couldn't tell you. I really couldn't. But you know, as a kid, obviously, like I think I think Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast, Lion King, Aladdin, those four pretty much in constant rotation. Pocahontas, as I already mentioned, I have the nostalgia with my sister with that movie. Mulan, I think, probably is a little bit more famous just because that movie has such killer songs and just a really good message. And Tarzan is Tarzan. Tarzan kicks ass, and we'll get to Tarzan. So I don't know, man. And obviously Hunchback is, it's Hunchback. It's like that was definitively my favorite Disney movie as a kid. So, all right, Dragon. So what is your number 32?
The Lady and the Tramp.
Okay. Yeah, this one, I don't know about you, but this one actually held up quite well for me on a rewatch.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah, it's great. It's a romantic classic. It's obviously the MVP of the ultimate first date. Like the spaghetti scene.
I also feel like it's got a little bit more edge than I remember in some spots.
Yeah, it does. It does. Like they talk about how the tramp is very very flirtatious. They go there. I don't know. I mean, look. Admittedly, this doesn't really take away from the film, but admittedly, there are a few because you took some shots at Peter Pan for this sort of thing. There are a few things that don't hold up here too. You get like the Siamese cats and the whole lot. The stereotypes in the pound. Yeah, it's a bit much. It's enough to get like a little disclaimer at the top of the movie, like some elements might not hold up as well. But yeah, I mean it's always
fair. That's most Walt era movies.
Oh yeah, it's not their fault. It was a different time. Anyway, regardless, yeah, I was always charmed by bits like, speaking of Walt, I mean obviously the Hatbox scene, inspired by real life.
Sure.
I believe his wife was given a dog in a little hat box. So, a lot of like little personal touches like that.
I really hope there were air holes in that hat box. That's always bothered me about this movie. I
Wait.
swear to God, it's a little detail, but it's always kind of like nagged at the back of my
Well,
head.
yeah. Look, if there aren't air holes, I'm assuming the idea is we just put in there like the second before she got
Yeah,
downstairs. Okay, it's like dog's in the box, comes down, puts the lid down. Hey, honey, open this. I don't know. Anyway, so yeah, I mean, I think the most interesting thing about Lady and the Tramp is how we kind of focus on the dog's perspective, like we do kind of the Tom and Jerry thing for a lot of the movie. Not really seen, from the legs up, and if they, I'm not saying we don't see their faces, but for the majority of, like, when the dogs are in the scene, we really don't see their faces that often. So, which again makes it, because we're telling a very human story with dogs, and the humans are just kind of like, kind of set pieces almost, in which they're more like plot pieces. They're kind of moving things forward. Like, oh, hey, I gotta tell you, on the rewatch though, that rat attack, man, really random. Is it random to you? Was it set up? Can you remind me, like the rat?
No, it's pretty random. The rat
Right?
is honestly, like, I've heard the rat, like, I've seen it be categorized as like the quote unquote villain of the movie, which I straight up don't agree with.
Aren't the Siamese cats technically the villain?
You know what, Dragon? I'm just gonna go as far as to say this is one of the first Disney films that just straight up does not have a villain.
I mean, the cats were kind of jerks, but not really like mustache twirly. I don't know.
I mean, they're not present throughout the whole movie. That's the thing, and neither is the rat. If anything, I would say Aunt Sarah is probably the closest thing we have to a full antagonist.
Yeah. But yeah, the whole I don't know, so that whole like seriously, that rat scene, like what the heck is that rat's problem? It's like it's going after a baby. Like, I mean, can you imagine the headcanon here? What if that was Ratigan? Never gonna happen.
God.
Can you imagine? Again, the ages, I know the ages wouldn't work, but then again, that's a period piece.
That's like Judge Doom being the hunter that shot Bambi's mom.
Yep, I tried to kill a baby once, but
oh my God.
some dogs stopped me. Anyway. But yeah. I don't know. Again, the ending's really cute and everything. It's, I don't know, Lady and Tramp is it's charming, but I don't know. The dog movies always kind of have like you have to really impress to really get really high up there. I mean, Lady and Tramp, I think, has a lot of charm to it that separates it from the other animal movies that we kind of talked about, which is why it's as high as it is.
Also, one of the other things I really appreciate about Lady and the Tramp is that I believe it's the very first contemporary animated Disney film.
Right. Yeah, I think you're right about that.
Which is really interesting to look back on, because obviously when you look at it now, it feels like an old movie. It feels like it's set in a time long gone by. But at the time, it was very, it was kind of like a radical departure from like the fairy tales and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Z and K, Judge Doom shooting Bambi's mom, I believe that was like in scripts and stuff, right?
Yeah, it's essentially, like, they've confirmed, like, yeah, that's essentially what happens.
It's more or less canon.
Yeah, I mean, at the very least they planned that, and it's just the fact they didn't show it. I don't know if it's in the book or not, but at the very least in the movie, the intent was that Judge Doom.
Oh, I'm pretty sure it is in the book. Come to think of it,
the bare minimum, it is intended that that Judge Doom he's man from Bambi.
All right. Let's see. What else do we have?
And you don't remember Bambi's head is on Gaston's wall in Beauty and the Beast, do you?
Oh my God! All right.
No. I'm asking because sometimes I like to do that. We've had dead animal bodies, and
I mean, obviously we have the antlers, but I'm not going to go as far as to say it's Bambi's head. I feel like that's taking the conspiracy theory thing a little too far.
Well, I'm just saying we've had dead Pumbaa in The Hunchback of Notre Dame. It is possible.
Very true. Okay.
I'm genuinely asking. I don't know.
We also had Scar. I feel like Scar is probably like the most infamous example.
Yeah, we skinned Scar alive. Yeah. Yeah.
All right. My number 31, Dragon. This is going to be super unpopular, but I don't know what to tell you, man. I really appreciate animation for the sake of animation and trippiness and freeform styles. So Melody Time is my number 31. I know it's way, way, way high up there.
That's inconceivable. Maybe go on.
Let me tell you why. I just think this is definitely the best package film in my opinion. And the reason I say that is that I feel like literally every single one of these shorts, with the exception of one of them, is just a stone cold classic. So like going down the line, you have Once Upon a Winter Time, which is just, I mean, that's a classic in its own right. It's used in like all the Disney Christmas media material. Very, very classic imagery. Then you have Bumble Boogie, which is, more or less a Fantasia segment. It's just like, it's very freeform, very jazzy, very psychedelic. Then you have Johnny Appleseed, which I've already kind of talked blue in the face about. I fucking love Johnny Appleseed. It's one of my all-time favorite shorts that Disney ever produced. That Apple Blossom Sky is just amazing visually. I love everything about it. Let's see. Then we have Little Two, which honestly is probably like the one in this movie where I'm like, yeah, it's okay. I could skip it. Then you have Trees, which is basically just a tone poem about a tree, which, yeah, a little boring, but I mean, I love that it's just thrown in there as this, to me, is what makes this movie feel more like Fantasia than the other package films, is the fact that not only do you have this kind of eclectic variety of shorts, but you also have an eclectic variety of styles. Blame It on the Samba is, obviously another very surreal piece that was argued is the best package film. So on the Disney debate, so I feel like there's definitely some credence there. And then Pecos Bill is just pure Americana. It's just pure Americana in the highest order, in my opinion. I just love all the vibes of that. I love the the live action cowboys telling the story with the fight, at the fire pit. Dragon Bobby Driscoll is actually one of the kids that the story is being told to. Bobby Driscoll pops up a lot.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I don't really have any shame in this, man. Like, looking at it objectively, Melody Time to me, like, pretty much every short knocks it out of the park. And Little Two is definitely the weakest one, but it's still fine. It's still, it's still a charming little short about an anthropomorphic boat. But literally everything else in Melody Time, I feel like, is classic Disney. I feel like literally everything else in Melody Time has gone on to make its mark within the overall Disney canon. And so for that reason, just the sheer level of quality within these shorts, I have to put it this high. I couldn't justify putting it in the top half of the list, so that's why it's 31. But it's about as high as I could possibly place it. All right, Dragon, take us out. What's your number 31?
The Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh.
Okay, this is another one. I feel like the Winnie the Pooh films, just in general, are hard to categorize.
Ron, what was your number 40?
My number 40 was Dumbo. My number 38 was Winnie the Pooh 2011.
Right. Okay. Sorry, so it was for a moment I was rooting for. Oh, did we go full circle? Did we do it?
No, not quite.
That would have been that would have been so darn cool if that had happened. But anyway. Okay, no, in all seriousness, so yeah, this The Main Adventures of Winnie the Pooh is great, man. Seriously, it is great. I love the. I think I'm going to go as far as I think it's the best integration of the Disney storybook framing device we'd ever done. Like, we go really meta with it here, like the narrators talking to Pooh and talking about, like, well, he's stuck on this page number, and he's stuck on this page. That was just adorable to me. And like later on, Pooh saying like, okay. I don't want it to be over. Can we go back to page 1? That's so freaking precious. But yeah, ultimately, The Main Adventures of Winnie the Pooh, it's slice of life at its best. Of these cute little adventures. These cute little slice of life adventures with Christopher Robin and his little plushy, kind of plush animal pals. Sherman Brothers score, obviously, and Sherman Brothers songs, they just breed kind of like a cozy and friendly comfort just in their DNA, and it's lovely. For me, though,
Weasels is clearly a ripoff of Pink Elephants, but I don't really care.
Good for you.
It's still really good.
Okay. Anyway, so I think for me, when I think of The Main Adventures of Winnie the Pooh, there's one thing I think of that I think is like the most like lovely part of the film. The ending is just so perfect to me. Just Pooh and Christopher Robin saying their goodbyes, or going down on the little walk and basically talking about the future, about can't do nothing forever, and It's the fact that you again, like he promises that he promised you won't forgive me. I just there's like a genuine, real delivery from Pooh there. It was just saying like I promise Christopher Robin, I won't forget you. I don't know. It's just kind of like a lovely, just kind of
Oh
like
yeah, the
imparting.
ending is like it's genuinely kind of heartbreaking in some ways.
Yeah, but again, that's the thing. You have like this kind of this harmless, cozy, like, oh, isn't this a cute movie? And then you have this wonderfully profound ending about kind of the uncertainty of the future and
Mm-hmm.
just like the parting of this icon of childhood. And like, well, I mean, I don't know when I'll be back, but when you're 100, how old will I be? 99, you silly old bear. It's like it's adorable. And also, again, gives us a sequel of Christopher Robin. It's literally how that movie starts. It starts with this ending, direct
I know,
sequel.
right?
Very heady, and one of the only. It's not really a remake, but like one of the only Disney live action films that actually worked.
Oh.
Not perfectly, but it's worked. Yeah, so it's just I don't know. It's just something really wonderful about this film. Again, it's not chock full of like a lot of like really dazzling story material, so that's why it's not on the other list. But still, though, there's something special there.
All right, Dragon, can you quickly run down your list one more time?
I suppose. All right. Number 40, Sleeping Beauty. Number 39, Encanto. Number 38, The Adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad. Number 37, Raya and the Last Dragon. Number 36, Robin Hood. Number 35, The Great Mouse Detective. Number 34, Alice in Wonderland. Number 33, Fantasia 2000. Number 32, The Lady and the Tramp. And number 31, Deja Vu, The Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh.
All right, so for me, number 40, we have Dumbo, 39, Big Hero 6, 38, Winnie the Pooh 2011, 37, 101 Dalmatians, 36, The Princess and the Frog, 35, Peter Pan, 34, The Fox and the Hound, 33, Fantasia 2000, 32, Hercules, and 31, Melody Time. All right. And with that, Dragon, we are halfway through. We're halfway through this, so very excited. And big thanks to Z and K for following along the whole time, as well as Theme Park Priest chiming in. You guys are awesome. And Dragon, I just want to let you know, on the WDW Magic forums where I've been posting this, it's inspired a lot of people to go back, do rewatches of their own, make lists. So this is definitely having an impact, at least on our own little kind of little corner of the Disney fandom. And I'm very happy about that.
What do you know?
All right, folks. Have a good night. See y'all later.
Can't we do it all over again? Go back to page 1?